Let us hear first greetings. We have a tech center in his state that is hosted last night our out-of-town delegates. It's 2,800 square feet, and we have 17 chapters. And he has been one that has been committed to working with NAN all over the country, but particularly in his state. Let us welcome the Governor of New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy.
Good morning, all. I promise you, you look up in the dictionary and beside the phrase short straw, you're going to see the person who has to follow Reverend Al Sharpton speaking. I want to thank Reverend Sharpton, Dr. Richardson, for their partnership and for their leadership. I want to thank the New Jersey leader day in and day out of NAN, Reverend Steffi Bartley, who's down the front row here today. God bless you, Reverend. Is that the mayor of Newark right beside you? That's Mayor Ras Baraka right there. Come on, man. One of America's great mayors, and we got another one up here. Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York City is with us. I was looking up at President Obama, and I'm sure former Attorney General Eric Holder would agree with me, as we both served under the president. Those were the good old days. And boy, would we like to get them back. DNC Chair Tom Perez is right here helping us get in that fight to get it back. Reverend Sharpton, again, I can't thank you enough. I'll be very brief. And by the way, you pointed out one of my North Stars. I stand here as the governor of New Jersey, but I'm also a proud former member of the National Board of the NAACP, and I wouldn't have been there without Hazel Dukes. Let there be no doubt. NAN is a partner in everything that we do in so many respects in New Jersey. And if you follow me around at all, you'll hear me talk every moment about we need to get a stronger and fairer New Jersey that works for every family, not just for some. And we have the two-dimensional chess reality. We're not only pushing back on all the stuff that's coming at us out of the Trump administration, but we're digging out of 8 years of a legacy in our state where we didn't grow, we weren't strong, we weren't fair, and when it did work, it worked for too few of us. So NAN is a partner day in and day out with us on both the stronger and the fairer New Jersey. You probably hear more about the fairer side because we're pounding away. We're going to get minimum wage raised to $15 an hour. Equal pay for equal work for women in our state. Child dependent care tax credit, comprehensive criminal justice reform, funding public education at long last, signing common sense gun safety laws, and partnering with other like-minded states like New York. NAN is a partner in all of those. But NAN is also a partner in the stronger New Jersey, in the growing New Jersey. And we won't grow again unless we have an urban agenda which is robust and unless we re-seize the innovation economy. And Ras Baraka knows this better than anybody. NAN Tech World in Newark embodies both of those principles. It's at the center of our urban agenda, and it's at the center of our innovation agenda. So whether it's the stronger New Jersey, the fairer New Jersey, the New Jersey that has to work for everybody, not just some, I'm honored to stand with Reverend Sharpton, Reverend Bartley, and all of the great members of NAN day in and day out. God bless you all, and thank you for everything you do.
Let us bring up our panel, and then we're going to hear from Tom Perez. As we saw in Memphis, Dr. King went to Memphis and was assassinated fighting for the garbage strikers. We're glad to have, as a member of our national board and the national president of AFSCME, Lee Saunders. Give him a hand. We are proud to have the head of the American Federation of Teachers, a gladiator, a warrior, a fighter, sister beloved, Randy Weingarten. We're glad to have the mayor of the city of Newark, who has mixed activism with redevelopment like no mayor in the country, Mayor Ras Baraka. We're proud to have I call our policy wonk. Her father baptized me. I started civil rights under her father, Jennifer Jones Austin of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies. And we are proud to have my colleague, my friend. This young man says what he means and means what he says. He's unafraid, and he has continued to stand as a progressive way before it was fashionable, and understands that it is a matter of getting things done, not just taking the right position. He's been the editor of Nation magazine. He is the host of All In. He's an author. I have his books here. If y'all get his book, he'll sign it for you. I begged to hang around for a while to sign some books, but y'all got to pay for them now. I didn't tell him I was going to buy them. From MSNBC, my brother, Chris Hayes. Our sister from Missouri, from Ohio. I'm looking at Bishop Hilton thinking, from Cincinnati, Alicia Reese. And that's what I'm asking where she. Let me also say this. There is two major parties in this country, and they are bad and good in all. Every Democrat is not good. First time I was arrested, the Democratic mayor arrested me for sitting there. Every Republican is not bad. There's been some good Republicans. I know that Trump's giving them a bad name. But we mourn today a good Republican. Barbara Bush was a very good woman. There is no one I know with more sense of humanity and fairness, and that tells the truth even if it's against their friends, that I've come to know and love and wanted to be here today because she's fair, she is informative. You know, a lot of folk spend more time in the dressing room than on the tube because they posing to be chosen rather than giving information. She's a straight shooter, and she is one that we've come to respect and regard in our community. And that is why we try to make our deadline with the White House every day on MSNBC. My favorite Republican, Nicole Wallace of Deadline White House. Now, I'm going to hear from Tom Perez. Then we're going to hear from our panel and ask them to make their points. But I want all of us to respect the fact that they've waited while our elected officials spoke. And I want you to know the fact that we had two governors this morning, all of this shows the strength you have if we use it. I make them come to us and address our issues if you use it. You know, I'm supposed to be controversial, not supposed to come near us. But if you stand up, people have to respect you. I must acknowledge also, and we don't leave issue in the media leave. You know, like I said, Michael Brown's parents here. We never left Ferguson. We got there first day. A lot of folk came in, became the new leaders, gone. I want us to give a big hand who's never left us, never left the fight. 4 years later, one of the great matrons of our movement, the mother of Eric Gardner, Gwen Carr. Stand up, Gwen. I want her to meet the grandmother of Stephon Clark. Where's Grandma? They went, okay, we've already connected them. Because nobody understands Grandma's pain like Gwen does. And Gwen can talk to her. Miss Diallo's here from 99. I stay in touch with the families because this is not about a soundbite to me. This is life. And we become family. Miss Diallo, Sean Bell's parents, all of them, they're our guests tonight at the dinner. There will not be a NAN that we do any event that we do not bring together all that we have fought for. Too many activists use victims as props. But Hazel and all of us are real. I was thinking, you know, Lee, during the criminal justice part, just also remember now that you treat each other nice. I want y'all to meet each other, act nice. Because you can get in trouble in court because if you're not treated nice. Dr. Richardson was telling me about he had a member in his church, old lady, respectable, attorney general. She lived a good life. She was 75 years old. And she went to the grocery store, Nicole, and stole 4 potatoes. They took her to court. Judge was outraged. 75 years old, stole 4 potatoes. I'm going to make an example out of you. You're supposed to know better. I'm going to give you a year for each potato. Judge got ready to sentence her, and the man started waving his hand back. Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Honor. Says, sir, what's wrong? I need to say something, Your Honor. He says, well, what do you need to say? Who are you? He said, I'm her husband. He said, well, what do you need to say? He says, I just want you to know she stole 3 bags of black-eyed peas, too. So y'all better treat each other right. Chairman of the Democratic National Committee, former Labor Secretary, our brother, Tom Perez.
That's so unfair. Good morning, everyone. How do you follow that? I have no idea. Reverend Sharpton, thank you for your unflagging leadership. It is such an honor to be here with you. I've come here with many different hats on. I came here as the head of the Civil Rights Division, came here as your Labor Secretary. I come here as the chair of the Democratic Party. And every single time I come here because, you know, when your gas tank is a little low, you go to the gas station. And when you need to fill your moral gas tank, you come to the NAN conference. And that's why I'm here. I tell you, folks, no disrespect to Lou Gehrig, but I feel like the luckiest person on the face of the earth because I had the privilege of working for the likes of Ted Kennedy years ago. I had the privilege of working for a guy named Barack Obama. And I had the privilege of working under the leadership of a guy named Eric Holder, one of the most impactful attorneys general in American history, folks. It's really easy to work for a boss who understands that the Department of Justice means justice for all, not justice for a few. An attorney general who understands that people fought and made the ultimate sacrifice for the right to vote, and we must never forget that. He understood that it was always the right time to do the right thing. And I will tell you, we talk a lot and we appropriately commemorate the anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. But you know what? Last week we marked another anniversary. And that was the 50th anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act. The Fair Housing Act would never have happened but for the likes of people like Senator Ed Brooke, the first popularly elected African American in the United States Senate, who fought as part of America's greatest generation and could not get access to housing when he came home. It would not have happened but for the leadership of Clarence Mitchell Jr. of the NAACP, who was often referred to as the 101st Senator. And you know what, folks? We almost didn't celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act because in 2011, a case found its way to the Supreme Court. The goal of that case was to do away with the heart and soul of the Fair Housing Act. Under the leadership of Eric Holder, we were able to defeat that effort, and we were able to celebrate the Fair Housing Act. So you read so much about what this Attorney General has done, and I'm here to tell you some of the other things that may not make the history books, but certainly had as much impact. He understood, Mr. Crump, that the shooting in Sacramento was not a local matter. When there's injustice everywhere, it's everybody's matter. It's everybody's business. And that is why he did more work, and I was proud to work side by side with him to build constitutional policing, effective policing. They are not mutually exclusive. They go hand in hand. Eric Holder understood that. Unfortunately, we live in a different world. And the question I ask every single day, whether it's what do we do about gun violence? What do we do about police misconduct? What do we do about fair housing? What do we do about the right to vote? What do we do about dreamers? What do we do about the right to organize? What do we do about making sure that women have the right to control their own bodies? What do we do about the fact that we have a Secretary of Education that doesn't believe in public education and an EPA administrator that doesn't understand climate science? What do we do? The answer is we vote. When they go low, we go vote. When they go low, we go vote. That's what we do, my friends. I had the privilege of spending time in Memphis last week, and it wasn't the first time I was there. And I tell you, if I could ask you for one moment to give it up for my good friend Lee Saunders, the head of AFSCME, who organized the I Am campaign to make sure that this wasn't simply a commemoration, it was a call to action. And it was such an honor to be there because we weren't there to simply talk about what happened in the past. We were there to talk about what we must do in the future. The most important question Dr. King always asks, what can we do for others? And if there's a lesson I learned from Dr. King's legacy, it's that we must always be bold as a nation. America's at its best when we are bold, when we are inclusive, when we understand that we all succeed only when we all succeed. It's truly remarkable when you think about it. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 was first introduced in 1948 by a guy named Adam Clayton Powell, congressman from Harlem. It took 16 years to pass that law. You know, he could have taken a victory lap after that 16-year odyssey. What did he do with his Nobel Prize and other things? He marched right back to the White House. And he said, we need a Voting Rights Act, Mr. President. And when Mr. President said, I'm not sure I can do that. My political bank account has been depleted. Andrew Young and Dr. King and others said, we've got to work to replenish that political bank account. And how do we do that? We organize, organize, organize. And that's exactly what they did. And so that boldness and that inclusiveness, that's what he was all about. And that's the lesson I take. I came to you a year ago. I was 2 months or so into my tenure as the head of the Democratic Party. And I told you this. I said, I am sorry. I'm sorry we took you for granted. I remember going to that AME church in Detroit on a listening tour and being told correctly, you got to stop showing up at my church every 4th October pretending that you care. She was right. We lost not only in 2016, but we lost so many elections because we stopped organizing. We lost because we took too many people for granted, including African Americans, our most loyal constituency. We lost because we squandered our technology advantage. We lost because our message of opportunity got muddled. We lost because we took too many things for granted. And I came here and I told you, never again. The mission of the new Democratic National Committee is to help elect Democrats from the school board to the Oval Office. And we will organize everywhere. And we will lead with our values everywhere. And I'm here to tell you that's exactly what we're doing. And I'm here to say, not simply, we've learned from our mistakes. I'm here to say thank you. Because the victory in Alabama the victory in Alabama was the victory in this room. African American women, the backbone of the Democratic Party, led that victory. And you know what, folks? When I told people we're all in Alabama, and I wasn't waiting until Roy Moore won. You know, people say, you know, did you catch a break with Roy Moore? And I'll be honest with you. Was I rooting for Roy Moore to win the primary? Heck, I was rooting for Roy Moore to win the primary. But you know what, folks? We started organizing way earlier. 100% of our investment went into African American outreach. And you know what, folks? The folks that we hired as consultants on the ground, African American women from Alabama who knew Alabama, African American faith leaders from Alabama who knew Alabama. That's what we did. That's the new DNC. We're investing everywhere. We're taking no one for granted. The week before the election in Alabama, there was an election in Atlanta, Georgia. And a week before that election, we got a call from Keisha Lance Bottoms. She was 4 to 5 points behind in the polls. She was worried. We had already invested in that race, but we redoubled our investment. We invested more money. We bought 55,000 cell phone numbers. We ran from the DNC an SMS texting program because you know what, folks? This is where people consume their news on their gadgets. We connected with those voters, and she won by 700 or so votes. We were proud to support Keisha Lance Bottoms in Atlanta. We were proud to support Vi Lyles in Charlotte, North Carolina. We were proud to invest in Virginia, where communities of color were part of a broad coalition, what Reverend Barber would call a fusion coalition of success. That's what we're doing. We're investing everywhere. And I'm here to tell you, folks, I come to you like everybody else with unrelenting optimism. Because you know what, folks? When people ask me to describe America, I describe America in 2 words: endless possibilities, bold possibilities. This is not the first time we've hit a pothole in our nation's journey to form a more perfect union. We've seen this before, but every single time we've seen it before, we've had the Reverend Sharptons of the world out there. We've had those frontline generals. And I feel like I am simply a corporal in this movement when I see the likes of Hazel Dukes and Reverend Sharpton, and I talk to Andrew Young and others, and I see General Saunders, General Weingarten, leaders of the union movement. I am in awe because you know what, folks? We are all in this together. And the most important thing we're doing in 2018 as a Democratic Party is voting. Commit to vote. That is our initiative. Our bold goal is to get 50 million more people out to vote. We can do this, folks, but we can't do it without you. In 2014, 47 million less people voted than in 2012. When less people vote, we lose. We know why that is happening in part. These pernicious voter ID laws have made it harder. There's no doubt about it. Partisan gerrymandering has created an unlevel playing field. You look in Pennsylvania, Barack Obama won that by 5.5 points in 2012. There were 18 members of Congress, 18 congressional seats. The Democrats running in Pennsylvania in 2012 won over 50% of the vote. And we won 5 out of the 18 seats because they had so gerrymandered that state that elected officials were choosing their constituents. Constituents should choose their elected officials. That's what we should be doing. That's why I applaud the Attorney General's initiative on redistricting, because we have to create a level playing field. But you know what? Even in the unlevel playing field that we see now, we're winning everywhere. And we're winning everywhere when we lead with our values. That's exactly what we're doing in the Democratic Party. I'm so proud of the fact that we have helped flip over 40 seats in every zip code across this country. We are working hard. We're winning elections in Oklahoma. Why? Because we're talking about the issues that matter most. In Oklahoma and Kansas, tens of thousands of school children are going to school 4 days a week because Republican leadership has cut funding to the bone. I was your labor secretary. We had a lot of discussions about the future of work. I never had someone come in and say, Tom, I've got a great idea about how to build a 21st century economy. Let's have our youngsters go to school 4 days a week. That is a morally bankrupt strategy. It is an economically bankrupt strategy. And I applaud the leadership of Randy Weingarten and other teachers who are standing up and saying, we need a Secretary of Education who believes in public education. We need to invest in our teachers. We need to invest in our computers. We need to invest in our future. That's what we're doing. That's why we won 4 seats in state legislative races in Oklahoma, in districts that Trump won by more than 20 points. Folks, we can win everywhere when we lead with our values. We can win everywhere when we organize. We can win everywhere when we marshal the power of we, that collective power of we. And that's what we're all about. And I want to make sure that you know what we're fighting for every single day. The Democratic Party is fighting for a better future for everyone. We're fighting for a worker's right to organize. We are fighting for an education system that works for everyone. We're fighting to make sure that we build more schools and less prisons. We're fighting to make sure we pass that ballot initiative in Florida that gives former offenders the right to vote. Because when you've paid your debt to society, you should be able to participate in society. We're fighting to make sure that zip code is never determinative of your destiny. We're fighting to make sure that dreamers can dream. And Reverend Sharpton, one of the things I'm so grateful for you is that you understand that the mission is broad. You are out there for dreamers. You are out there for the family of the Clarks, or the families of Ferguson, the families of the Diallos. We work together on Sean Bell. You're out there for justice in every zip code, not just here in the New York area. And that is what we're doing at the Democratic Party. We're fighting to ensure that everybody gets counted in the census. You know why they're trying to do it differently. Because they want to make sure they can disenfranchise you. We're fighting to make sure that every eligible person can vote. We're making it easier for people to vote, not harder for people to vote. That's what we're doing, folks. We're fighting, in short, for dignity and decency and inclusion. It's what brought my family here. They came from the Dominican Republic. They settled in Washington Heights, 152nd and Riverside Drive. New York City was that beacon of hope, that beacon of opportunity. The Democratic Party was the party of freedom fighters. That's what my parents taught me. They taught me the Democratic Party always had your back on the things that mattered most. They taught me the Democratic Party is the party of we. And we see that in the work we're doing for shared prosperity for everyone. We're not the party for me. We're the party for everyone. And so We need to work. I leave you with one word, 202. Folks, there are 202 days till November the 6th. 202 days till the weekend. Every single day between now and November the 6th. You need to ask the question that Dr. King asked of us. What are you doing for others? That's what we're asking. That's what we're doing. And the answer for me is we are making sure that everyone votes. I will vote is our signature initiative. When we vote, when we organize the vote, when we protect the vote, when we get out the vote, we win. That's how we're going to make history, because history has its eyes on us. And that arc of the moral universe is indeed going to bend back to justice. But it'll never bend on its own. So let's keep bending it together. Thank you for fueling my spiritual tank. Let's do it together.
Tom Perez. Now let me say, as we start, the book by Chris is on sale in the back, A Colony in a Nation. And you really need to read that book. I've put that as mandatory for our chapter leaders because it really summarizes really what NAN's core fight in criminal justice is about. And Chris is going to sign some of them. Now, when he signs in the back, let me say this. Don't audition for his show. He's not here to book you for a show. Don't tell him your grandma always wanted to see you on All In. Grandma be all right and you won't be on All In. But you will get a book. Chris is a nice guy. He won't tell you that, but I'm telling you that. You will not be on All In, and you're not going to be on Politics Nation neither. Now, Deadline, she said maybe her, but I'm going to escort her out of here. I mean, you get more folks stop you in airports that you think like you, they're just trying to get on television. So what I do is, since I learned how to work my iPhone, I videotape them and send them a tape. That's about all the taping they're going to get. I want our panelists, and we're going to do this with them making 5 or 6 minute statements because they were very patient, but they got other schedules. They respect NAN, but they didn't come to spend the whole day with NAN. And it's just a thing about coming to an organization like this with a preacher. Everybody gets up, starts preaching. I heard more preaching today than I did at a preacher's revival. But I did get a concrete executive order, so I'm happy. So I'm only going to ask y'all to take 5 to 6 minutes apiece. We've asked the State of the Union under Donald Trump in your view. And I want you to wrap up by giving 2 or 3 specific things that you think citizens ought to be doing. Because we see the drama and we see the trauma. But in the middle of it, Trump has signed executive orders saying Medicaid recipients and food stamp recipients have to work. There are some concrete things that are being done. State of the Union, what do you see as the state, and what do you recommend these delegates from around the country focus on? Let me start. I'm going to go from side to side, and I promise, Attorney Hardy, we're going to let you up. You only be 10 minutes late. I looked at the schedule because they've got schedules, and I don't want to hold them, but they were kind enough to wait to be heard. I'm going to start with MSNBC's All In Nation magazine's Mr. Put It All Out man, Chris Hayes.
Thank you. How's everybody doing? Good, thank you. You can ask me to be on my show, I'll be nice. Rev is right, I am a nice guy. It's true. So here's what I want to talk about today. What do we mean when we say law and order? in this year of our Lord 2018? What does law and order mean? The president talks a lot about law and order. The president got up in Cleveland. I sat there in Cleveland. I watched the president of the United States, the soon-to-be president of the United States, saying that he was the law and order candidate, that he believed in law and order. So let's check in on the law and order president. The law and order president's national security advisor has pleaded to a felony. He lied to the FBI. The law and order's campaign chairman faces over a dozen counts of federal felonies in federal court. The law and order president's deputy campaign manager has also pleaded to a felony. The law and order president had a man working in his White House who was accused of putting a vase into the face of his first wife. He is accused of domestic violence with his second wife. And when confronted with this, the law and order president whined about the fact that he had to fire him and talked about how there's no due process. The law and order president's personal attorney and closest associate was raided by the FBI last week. The law and order president says that multiple members of the Federal Bureau of Investigation should themselves be criminally prosecuted. Makes you wonder, what was he meaning by when he said law and order? What does the president mean when he talks about law and order when these are the people that he surrounds himself with, when he does nothing but speak ill of those who would seek to apply the law equally without fear or favor? Does he really care about the law? Does the president of the United States care about the law? The president of the United States has shown absolutely no appetite for the law. And it's bigger than the president of the United States. Did you see John Boehner's new job? You know what John Boehner's doing now? John Boehner just got a paycheck to go lobby for big marijuana. John Boehner is a drug dealer. John Boehner went to go be a drug dealer. John Boehner. Who saw that coming? How do you think John Boehner voted when he had opportunities to vote on mass incarceration when he was in Congress? When hundreds and thousands of millions of our fellow citizens were being run through a criminal justice system that is the largest in the history of the civilized world, how did John Boehner vote about people that were caught with a dime bag? So what did it mean that whole time when we talked about law and order? What did it mean in this year of 2018 when we talk about law and order? It wasn't about the law. It was about a very specific kind of social order, about who goes where and who's allowed to cross which lines, about which people get forgiveness and which people get prison. And if I were to say something about the state of our union in 2018 is that never has that contradiction been clearer as law enforcement closes in on the most powerful person in the world. As we watch him complain and scream and talk about the unfairness of it all, as we watch his allies talk about, man, did you know in the United States of America the police can come knock on your door and take your stuff? Yes, a lot of people did know that. Welcome. Welcome to the country you've been living in this whole time. There's a lot of hope, though, beneath what's going on up there. I don't know what's going to happen to the president. I don't know what the president did or didn't do. Only the president knows what he did or didn't do. And you can take that however you want about whether you think the president is innocent or not. But what we're seeing at the local level is for the first time in basically 4 decades, some movement in the right direction on this question. We are seeing states close prisons, reduce their prison populations. We are seeing arrests go down in many places. We are seeing real reform among district attorneys and prosecutors. We're seeing a push to end cash bail. We are seeing a genuine push in many precincts to reverse some of the worst excesses of the kind of policies that were called law and order policies since Richard Nixon ran on that in 1968. And if there's hope, it's not to be found at this moment in what's happening in the Department of Justice and Jeff Sessions or what's happening in the White House. It is to be found at the local level, where organizing and pressure and votes really matter, and also where most of the criminal justice system battles are waged. And so in the year of our Lord 2018, at this time, when you talk about the State of the Union, there is what is happening in Washington, but there's what is happening with your prosecutor, with your mayor, with your governor, with your state representative. Those people have more power over who is going to go do time for being caught with a misdemeanor amount of marijuana and who's not. Whether people are going to vote when they get out of prison or whether they can't. All of that is in the hands of people that are voting at the most local level. And we are starting to see all of that start to change. It's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. There's a backlash coming. We're seeing the backlash at the national level. You're going to see it at the local level. We're going to see all those old tropes about law and order come back. But there is change to be had in 2018, and the direction is moving in the right direction at this moment on that issue.
Chris Hayes. Let's hear from the mayor of Newark, New Jersey, Ras Baraka. That's the Newark chapter, you know.
We came pretty deep here, right?
I see.
And they ain't even tell me. But it's always a pleasure to be here, National Action Network. You know, anything that Reverend Al does, we are going to be there beside you, brother. You know that. I think that he has been probably one of the most consistent and courageous leaders that we've had at this time. And despite all the difficulties and other things that happen, he's always been there on the front line, and we love you and we support you for that. That's for sure. Personally, I think President Trump is a distraction. I believe that he is a distraction on purpose. I think that all of these things that are going on have been prepared well in advance to happen before he initiated his campaign. I think that he represents the titular head of all of this stuff that was ready to blow over for some time now. Many people who were angry with the way the country was moving, with the election of the first African-American president, with him bringing Martin Luther King's Bible to the White House. all of these folks who were organizing themselves and preparing, even with the beginning of the attack on our voting rights through the Voting Rights Act, dismantling the Voting Rights Act. These folks have been waiting for this moment. And, you know, this guy, Trump, is a distraction. Everything he does, everything he tweets, everything he says, it sounds almost like a cartoon. The problem is that it's serious. And while we focus on him and we focus on Russians, nobody's talking about the Voting Rights Act. Nobody's talking about restoring Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. While we focus on him, they're rolling back criminal justice reforms, things that we've begun. They're attacking even consent decrees in cities like my own. While we focus on him, they're attacking housing. They're pulling money from community development block grants and making it difficult for us to develop and organize in our own communities. And while we're listening to him, they're talking about arming teachers and building walls, but not spending money on infrastructure and not making schools equal. These are the things that are making it very, very difficult. And what I say is that we have to develop a local strategy. And a local strategy means a state and municipal strategy where you are, or a county strategy where you are. You have to defend yourself where you are. That means you have to organize, be a part of the local organization, be a part of the local DNC, or be a part of your local church. Kwame Ture used to say, organize, 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 right? That's what he say, Stokely Carmichael. That's what you have to do. You have to be involved in that. And we have to fight on a local level for criminal justice reform, for bail reform. We have to fight for equal pay for equal work. We have to fight for the raising our minimum wage. We have to fight to protect immigrants in our communities, those that are documented and undocumented. And don't get fooled because when they say immigrants, you think they're talking just about Spanish-speaking immigrants. They're talking about you too. So you folks need to be clear that they're talking about the English-speaking, the French-speaking Caribbean, the African countries. All of us are together in this. And don't let them divide us on our nationality and on our language. We all together. So we need to be organizing on all, and we need to be organizing on income equality and economic redistribution of wealth. We need to be fighting for those things on a local level. We need to fight to keep our homes, fight to acquire more and more in our communities and our neighborhoods. Before Dr. King was murdered, because he was murdered, he talked about a radical redistribution of wealth. We cannot allow these people to get away with that. And I'm going to stop. But my thing that I've been talking about all the time is the urban Marshall Plan. We need it. We need them to reinvest or invest in these communities, invest in our infrastructure, invest in our schools, invest in our hospitals, train our babies, train our workers, right? Invest in tech in our neighborhoods, in our city, put people to work. We need those things. We just don't need, like Reverend Al said earlier, them to say, let's hold hands, kumbaya, we all get along. I don't want to get along, right? I want equality. I want equity. If you want me to like you, treat me right, right? Treat me fairly. We don't want to be murdered. We don't want to be shot in our backs. And when the jobs are given out, we want them. And we want to be paid decent wages. That's what we want. And so we need to fight for those things locally, at the municipal level, at the state level, at the county level. And we have to stop fighting one another over silly and crazy things. We have to put aside our differences and understand that our personal hurt is not as great as our collective problem that we have. Put our personal hurt aside and fight to unify around our collective enemies, the folks that want both of us, to be harmed and would love to see us harm one another. So we have to join and unify with each other. As difficult as it may be, we have to do that in order to win. Thank you.
The host of Deadline White House, Nicole Wallace.
Thank you. Can you hear me? No? Now? Am I the first woman to talk? Not yet? You've had other women? So since I've been here about an hour, I haven't heard any women speak yet, and I've been approached by so many women, and I want to say that I think it's up to us, ladies, to save America. I think that I don't disagree with anything that's been said by leaders of the Democratic Party. I don't disagree with anything that's been said by anyone on the panel. But I disagree with the gravity of the problem. Donald Trump is a lot more than a distraction. He's a threat to everyone. I have a 6-year-old baby, and I'm not here as a former Republican. I'm not here as a TV host. I'm here as a mama who can't turn her TV on anymore. My baby's never seen me on TV because on any given day, I could be covering a president calling countries shitholes. On any given day, I could be covering Charlottesville. On any given day, I could be talking about a porn star. Our problems are more than just muddling through and achieving policy goals. Our problems are more existential than that, and they require us to stop fighting about silly things, as you said, Mr. Mayor. President Obama, in his first inauguration, promised an end to silly things, and it was the one promise I wish Republicans had let him keep. We have too many fake conversations, fake debates. There's actually not as much resistance as you would think to many of the items on your policy agenda. There just isn't anybody to meet you in the middle and have a real conversation because we're so busy, we're so tired, we're so distracted by what has happened in the office with no corners. And I think it's time. I know a lot of Republicans. Steve Schmidt is a person I waged campaigns against Democrats with for decades, and I think we both have sort of laid down our arms and regret a lot of the things we fought about, because I think mamas and dads and people agree on a lot more than they disagree on, and I think it's time for the conversations to get a little grittier. I think it's time to realize that we don't have time to win the next presidential election. We need to fill the leadership vacuums with other people in other places. We've been on TV together. When Donald Trump attacks people for kneeling during the national anthem, that's racist. And we should stop turning to sportscasters and asking them what they think. We should turn to parents and ask them what they think. When Donald Trump calls a shooting in Sacramento a local issue, we should stop everything and call out racism. When President George W. Bush, who I'm going to take a pretty good bet no one in here voted for, comes out of hiding and says that the thing that keeps him up at night is that racism has been emboldened in America, we should give him the benefit of the doubt and agree with him for a minute, just 1 minute. And we should demand that people stop fighting about silly things. We should have real conversations about real things. We should tell the truth to each other. And as moms and dads, we should fight for a country where our kids can turn on cable news from time to time and not be horrified by what they see.
Nicole Wallace. How many of you have been involved around the country in the teachers' walkout and the teachers' fights? I know I see, okay, good. Well, the leader of that is someone we know well in New York because she was the local leader here. Now she's an international leader. Now she's got folk walking out in places that I never thought what I would see. The head of the American Federation of Teachers, Randy Weingarten.
So I'm going to talk today. I'm not going to preach today for the following reason. I was just really struck by what Nicole said, and I want to agree with her, and this is how I want you to hear that. When Reverend Sharpton said to me, he said, I need you in Washington, not in New York. He knows that I'd rather be in New York than Washington, even before Donald Trump was president. I want you to be in Washington for King Day. And I want you to really think about what you're saying. And I actually sat down a couple of days before that, over that weekend, and I wrote the following paragraph. And this is what I was struck by. I said, this is the most urgent election, not 2020, not the 500 people who are running for president already, but 2018 and all the local elections, as Chris just said before them. These are the most urgent in my lifetime, and for the following reasons. Everyone in this room, we have fought for fairness, for justice. But my friends, this is not simply a fight for fairness, and this is what I wrote. This is not simply a fight for fairness or justice or policies we champion for working folks and their families. We must be a check and balance for our democracy and for a society that is safe, welcoming, and sane. We have to fight the anti-democratic, the nativist, the racist, the incompetent, the oligarchical, the authoritarian, and the cruel instincts and actions of this president and his cronies and associates who simply want an intolerant, divisive society and return to the Gilded Age. So I agree with Nicole that this is a moment, and I will invoke the prophet Isaiah. This is, look, I'm married to a rabbi. What do you think? This is a moment that we need to enlarge the tent. Because what you are seeing in those walkouts in West Virginia and Oklahoma, and look, they are now fabled because it feels like David versus Goliath. But in this room, we have fought the fight against textbooks that are 50 years old. We have fought those fights, and why is it that in a blue state, they do not get the resonance that they now have in a red state? You know the answer, I know the answer. It is the power of the wedge. It's the power of the wedge. But what is happening now, and I saw this in the year of 2017 when I traveled mostly to red states and to listen. The issues, and Chris said it, and the mayor said it, and I know Lee will say it, the issues that we deeply care about safety in our streets and safety in our schools, about having a good job and a decent retirement, about having a good school and affordable college, about making sure we are not one illness away from bankruptcy, about making sure that we are fighting for voting rights, for labor rights, for public education. Those issues are red issues as much as they are blue issues, but the power of the wedge has stopped us from getting together and enlarging the tent, and that is what Donald Trump, in his cruelty and in his misogyny and in his racism, have taught us. And we need to use this 202 days to bring us together as we the people for a safe, sane, fair United States of America, starting in the local level and going to the state level and going to the national level. Let us stop this silly fights and let us fight for the things that we know we need for justice. Thank you.
And she said she wasn't going to preach. The incomparable labor leader of our times, who has really galvanized. And he said, we're going to Memphis on the 50th anniversary, and we're going to remind people Dr. King was killed fighting to preserve labor. There is a case in front of the Supreme Court that, if it goes wrong, will begin the dismantling of the American labor movement. We cannot, in a small silo, fight this. We've got to unite with workers all over the country. And thank God he's the right person at the right time to lead that fight, and we're going to be with him. You cannot be a follower of Dr. King, and this organization is built on that, without fighting for labor rights for everybody. And no one has symbolized and personified that more than the head of the American Federation of State and Municipal Employees, member of our National Board of National Action Network, Brother Lee Saunders.
Yes, everybody. Thank you. You know, I got here about 10 o'clock this morning, and I sat in the front row, and Al said that I was late. I'm still trying to figure that out. Still trying to figure that out. Let me take a little different tack from what you've heard. And I agree with all of the speakers on the dais. But let me talk a little bit about our history, because in order for us to know where we've got to go, we've got to understand where we have been, okay? And we need that. We were, and Al was there, Randy was there. We were in Memphis 2.5 weeks ago, commemorating a very, very important event. Commemorating an event where 1,300 African-American sanitation workers 50 years ago went on strike in the Deep South, in a city of Memphis that had a plantation mentality in the 20th century. And they went on strike, sisters and brothers, not just for better wages and benefits, not just to be recognized but for the city to recognize their union, Local 1733 of AFSCME, but they went on strike for dignity and respect. And as Fannie Lou Hamer would say, they were sick and tired of being sick and tired. Two of the brothers were crushed in a sanitation truck on February 1st, 1968. And that started that strike. And you know the story, but it's important for us to tell this story again and again and again, because this is not AFSCME's history. This is not the labor movement's history. This is American history, what happened in Memphis. Workers went on strike, and they had one simple slogan. And that slogan was, I am a man. They were standing up for dignity. They were standing up for respect. They were tired of being calling a boy when they were adults, and they said, never again will this happen. And they went on strike. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. paid attention to that strike. He was in the middle of planning the Poor People's March, Al, you know that. And he said that he must go to Memphis because he understood the connection between labor rights and civil rights and economic rights. He understood the connection of racial justice and economic justice. And he traveled to Memphis supporting those sanitation workers and ultimately gave his life. I tell that story because, you know, we've come a long way since 1968. But we've got a long way to go. And we've got to remember that history. Because history can repeat itself if we aren't careful. We need to think about this. You know, I want to say this. It's not out of disrespect. But I believe the strength of our nation does not exist with the person who sits in the White House. Right. I don't care about that, okay? I think that the strength of our nation, the perseverance, exists with every single one of us and every one of us who care about this country, who care about working families, who care about public schools, who care about retirement security, who care about a decent standard of living. And you see a new day, I believe, in this country, where folks are taking the lead of those sanitation workers 50 years ago, and they are standing up, and they're making their voices heard. The students teaching the adults something, standing up and making their voices heard. Women standing up, making their voices heard. Black Lives Matter standing up and making their voices heard. The labor movement standing up and making our voices heard. What we've got to do is connect that. We can't allow to be separated. That's the game that they play. Divide and conquer. We can't let them do this. But I tell you, I feel a spirit, a new spirit in this country. And if we bring that energy together as we were able to do in Memphis 2.5 weeks ago, and if we just not only commemorate and remember our history, but we commit and recommit and rededicate ourselves to have a call to action in New York City, a call to action in Buffalo, a call to action in Miami, a call to action in California, a call to action in Cleveland, Ohio. That's what this is all about. Coming back together and making our voices heard. This ain't rocket science. This is about getting up off our asses and making our voices heard and fighting back like never before. That's what this is all about. We know what we've got to do. If those sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee 50 years ago could risk their lives and their livelihood to stand up and they won, well, damn it, we can do the same thing. All right, brother.
Lee Saunders. From the Federation of Protestant Welfare Rights Organizations, our own Sister Jennifer Jones Austin.
Good morning, good morning. So we all know that our president, Reverend Al Sharpton, has a gift for words. Yeah. He is brilliant in many respects, and every year and every day we see that his brilliance is revealed more and more to us. But when he termed the National Action Network, he meant for all of us to be involved in active ways, all right? So I'm going to talk to you about one way that we really need to be active. Do you remember back in the 2016 presidential election when then candidate Trump told us us black Americans, that if we voted for him, we had nothing to lose. Do you remember that? Well, for Trump and those 8% of black Americans who believed him, he's proving himself wrong. We have a lot to lose, and we've already been losing. I want to talk to you about one specific area. We could talk about education. We have increasingly segregated schools where our poorest children, black and brown, are 4 grade levels behind others, right? We have an administration that has sought on 2 attempts with 2 budgets to try to cut out Pell Grants, college access programs, after-school enrichment programs that serve many of our black and brown low-income children. We can talk about that. We can talk about income, how this administration has turned an eye to continuing wage disparities and inequities, has said that they have nothing to do with raising the minimum wage and punt it to the states. We could talk about that. We could talk about the attacks on healthcare that continue, on housing, attempts to gut the affordable housing program, when many low-income people, 71% are spending more than 50% of their income on housing. We could talk about all of that, but there's one issue that you need to pay attention to right now, that we all need to pay attention to, and that is the coming expiration of the Farm Bill, the Agricultural Act of 2014, which includes the Farm Bill, and in it, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, otherwise known as food stamps. Are you with me? This administration and the Republican-led Congress is seeking to gut much of those food stamps. What do they want to do? They want to increase the work requirements for people between the ages of 50 and 59, and for some parents with children over 6. They want to increase the restraints and the penalties when you don't work when you don't work 20 hours in a week. Right now it's 80 hours over a month, but they want to increase that. We saw through the Obama years that there was some lifting of the restrictions during the Great Recession, but they want to come back with a vengeance. They want to take food stamps, which provide nutrition and assistance for the lowest income, children and families, and some individuals. They want to take that money away. And what will that do? That's going to affect health care, nutrition and assistance. Your health is very much largely determined by what goes into your body. And if you have less healthy food to eat, you're going to be less healthy. What is that also going to do? It's going to take the money that you would have put towards housing and other basic needs, perhaps enrichment supports like tutoring, assistance for your children. It's going to require you, if you don't have that money, to apply it towards that, right? Towards food. And so as a result, our children, our families are going to suffer more and more. This bill is being taken up right now. The House has put out a plan where they're calling for more stringent restrictions and requirements, where they will take your food stamps away if you don't meet minimum work requirements for as many as 3 years. You've got to act right now. What does that mean? You need to start going to your Congress leaders, your senators, and saying, this cannot happen. We will not balance the budget that they have sought to raise the deficit on the backs of poor people. Let your voices be heard right now about the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the Farm Bill. Don't let this one slip by, because it's going to hurt all of us.
Lastly, and again, many of you get ready. We're going to bring Chris Hayes to the back. You have your book. I see you waving your book, A Colony in a Nation. It's only $19.95. If you only have $19.90, I'll lend you a nickel. But you got to pay me back. Let us hear, in closing, our national board member. She was the head of the Ohio State Democrat State Legislative Caucus, grew up in the movement, Representative Alicia Reese. of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati, Ohio. Before I get started, I gotta let you know that, as they always say, you can't get to the White House without going through Ohio. And I brought some Ohioans who are on the ground, ready to fight, and are already fighting back against Donald Trump. I want to introduce Karen Williams and Wanda Miller, and my Bishop Bobby Hilton, who's over our NAN chapter in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Andre Washington from Ohio A. Philip Randolph. We are at the United States Supreme Court fighting against a bill to kill voting rights. They're purging. Almost 2 million people in Ohio have been purged, erased. They've been registered. They voted for President Obama. We showed up, we showed out, we delivered in Ohio for President Obama, and then they erased them from the rolls. And so we have taken this case all the way to the United States Supreme Court, face to face with Clarence Thomas, Andre Washington, A. Philip Randolph. Now, Nicole asked, she said, am I the first woman to speak here? And I'm here to tell you that I'm representing the 98%, the black women that came out in 98% to deliver Alabama. I'm here to represent the black women that's been carrying the Democratic Party on our back for years. I'm here representing the black women. After we carried the Democratic Party, we couldn't even get a meeting. I'm here to represent the black women. You don't have to tell us about Donald Trump, because the black women voted against Donald Trump. That's who I'm here to represent. And I'm calling for all my sisters of all races to join with us to get him out of office. Now, I'm here, I'm a technician in the political system. I've been marching since 7 years old. Reverend been knowing me all the way through my years at Grambling State University, historically black college. I'm a proud graduate of the public school system. And as president of the Black Caucus last year, we're the only group that picked up seats in Ohio. Everybody else lost. The Democratic Party lost seats, the state Senate lost seats, the state representative lost seats, but we picked up seats as the Black Caucus, and we got the largest amount in the history of the state of Ohio, because we went to the beauty shops, we went to the barber shops, we went in the hood, we went to the soul food restaurants. We wasn't too good to get back to the people. And so today, you might can't get on Chris Hayes' show, but you can get on my show, Alicia Reese Soul Food, because we bring the hot sauce every day in Cincinnati, Ohio. I came to NAN. I've been a member of NAN, and I've been watching Reverend Sharpton. We've been marching for years. We've been resisting for years. That's right. And at the 50th anniversary, we done had all these anniversaries, 50, 50, 50. And everybody running with selfies and trying to be seen. They down at Selma taking a selfie, but didn't give us the Voting Rights Act. Wow. They run down to Memphis and carry a broom and say they really with labor, put some overalls on and take a selfie and say we're with labor. But then you go back home and we got to fight right to work. We tired of the selfies. And we're not here for Democrat or Republican. We're here for the right thing. We're here to save the soul of America. So when Rev asks, what is the state of the union, we get way up here. We get so sophisticated. We tell them, oh, well, Donald Trump did this and 2% did that, and what did he say? And man, he was on Twitter. But let's break it really down.
Break it down. Break it down.
Where are we as a State of the Union when the black man can't go in Starbucks and have a meeting? That's where we at. Let's make it plain. That's where we're at. Not all the way up at the White House. We can't even come out of our house and be safe. So, my message is this. Democratic Party, I appreciate everything you're saying, but I had a chance to talk directly with the chairman. I hate he had to leave. We can't be 98% black women, 90% black men. Don't run and separate us from the black man.
That's right.
Got to be a package.
That's right.
We're a package. We're a package. Taking money out of our household. Now, we went to the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. National Action Network put up our own money, had our own event, 250,000 people there, 1 million people at home watching. Reverend Sharpton said, Alicia Reese, I'm going to bring you from Ohio and let you speak at this. I couldn't believe it. And we got up, and at that time, the Voting Rights Act had been gutted. And this was 2013.
Right.
And we got up and we said, listen, no more temporary solutions to permanent problems. We don't want no act. We want the Constitution. We taking Dr. King to the next level. And so we got up and we announced a voter bill of rights to put in the Constitution in states across this country. MSNBC said it's a people's movement. We started in Ohio and we going all over, so we don't have to care about who's in office. Our voting rights is protected.
That's right.
It's not, it can't be term limited. No more vote for me and I'll set you free. It's a for us, by us. So this is a copy. It is a copy. I didn't bring my book to sign, but this is a copy of the Democratic National Platform. And I was on the committee. And Democrats fought like hell on this, all on TV, ready to fight, falling out over this. At the end of the day, we approved. In it, it says, we support the Ohio Voter Bill of Rights constitutional amendment. Now, they got it in the platform. We done told everybody we doing it. We done collected 100,000 signatures. We done been all over 88 counties. We ready to roll. Now, here comes the party with $100,000 talking about we want to get the minorities out. And we 1.4 million in Ohio. Give me a break. We can't be first to the poll and last in your budget. It's over. It's over for that. Now, when you say, I'm for jobs, I want y'all, Rev said, what can we do? Let me be clear. Number one, you support the Voter Bill of Rights if you want to come through Ohio. Don't come in here with redistricting. And I really appreciate the Attorney General, and I love him to death. But you can't run into our state making deals with other people that ain't on the ground. We can't have redistricting without the Voting Rights Act. Without Voter Bill of Rights. That's like going to Kroger's and saying, you know what, I want some icing. I think I want vanilla. I think I want buttercream. And then you get home and say, you know what, we done forgot the cake. We want the cake. So number one, we want you to fund stuff that we say we need. We need funding for the Voter Bill of Rights. Don't come through Ohio unless you're ready to fund what we've already started to get our voting rights in the Constitution. Michigan has already started it following us. We want permanency. We don't want to vote for you. We want our own rights in the Constitution. Number two, don't come through here talking about, oh, we just for jobs. We need to know the zip codes. Give me the zip codes. Is it in our neighborhoods? Criminal justice. You hide behind. I ain't see you on the front line on criminal justice. We want to know what's your track record if you're running for a judge. What's your track record on criminal justice? Don't just come in here, say your name and wave and you smiling. We need to know your track record. Black businesses. Rev, this is incredibly important. The banks are kicking our behinds. We can't get a loan nowhere. And then we got Democrats in the Senate voting with Democrats, Republicans, and they all together taking all these restrictions off the banks. No. We got to know your track record. We want to know what the banks are loaning in the black community to black businesses, to black people. So we want a big movement on the financial institutions, and we want to know it's government. Don't you take our money. You collect taxes from everybody. Don't you take all $25. So, my last thing as I wrap up, because I don't know if y'all can handle the buffet, I just gave you appetizers. Anthem, let me tell y'all this real quick on insurance, because we've been running with Affordable Care Act, and that's important. But even people who have insurance, if you got Anthem insurance and other ones are starting to do it, they have already started saying, we're not going to pay your emergency room bills. So all of this wraps around, it's time for us to stand up for the soul of this country. But in the soul of the country is our blood, sweat, and tears. And our message to everybody, don't come in just, oh, y'all got to come out and vote, and why didn't black people vote? Let me tell you, black folks was the #1 ethnic group to vote in the last presidential election that pre-elected President Barack Obama. Give us something to vote for, and we'll get off the couch. Our challenge is not Donald Trump. He got his crowd. Those people gonna go with him. They like what he's doing for them. We got to get somebody that's going to do what we need to get to do so we can get up off the couch and get out to vote. From the White House to the State House to the courthouse